Okay, well, I make it about 4 p.m. French time. Hello everyone and welcome to Normandy with me, Patrick Hillier of welovenormandy.com. My company, if you don't know me, provides transport, accommodation and private tours for people visiting Normandy, and I've lived in this beautiful region for nearly 20 years. I'm a member of a D-Day tour guide, a member of the Normandy Battlefields Tour Guides Association, and since June of last year I've been giving virtual on-location tours like this one and webinars also from our HQ, and today we're here on Omaha Beach. Now today it is, let me just check on my weather thing here, it's saying it's currently 8 degrees centigrade, which I think is 46 degrees Fahrenheit. So we have high winds, we've just had quite a lot of rain, hail was forecast, maybe even snow. So we'll just have to play it by ear. We're definitely going to start here and try to follow the agenda that you've read on the event page. But what we may skip is the walk between here, where I am now, Strongpoint 65, and about a mile that way, which is Strongpoint 62. And I may get in the car. And luckily I have my driver, Nikki, with me today, who will be driving me to the second location if we get some rain or if my fingers start to freeze. I'm also lucky enough to have Brendan, my wingman at We Love Normandy HQ, and he's able to answer any of your questions that you can send in using the chat feature. Now, if you've tuned into this, I guess the joining instructions worked. If you've registered as a community member of We Love Normandy, then you'll be able to use the chat facility by sending me a message or a chat by selecting Patrick Hillier from the list. I should be the first one on the list. It's a one-to-one communication, so nobody else will see what you type. But if you want to ask me a question or post a comment, press chat and select me, Patrick Hillier, from the top of the list, and then you can send us a chat. If you can't see the chat button, that's probably because you didn't register as a community member, and that's easy to change. You just just above the video panel, you'll see your name, your profile. Click on your profile, and then let me make sure I've got this right. Then click Make Profile Public. So you're making your profile public. That means that you can talk to me, and I can talk to you using the chat facility. You may then need to refresh your browser. Press F5 on a PC, or refresh your browser on your tablet or your iPhone. Okay, I'd like to give a quick shout out to Barb, who is watching us in the USA. Her father was a US Ranger in Europe in World War II. So thank you so much, Barb, for subscribing, and welcome to Omaha Beach. So I'll be hosting a Zoom debriefing at the end of this tour. If you wish, you can ask questions then, real questions. We can have a discussion in the Zoom meeting, and the details of the Zoom meeting are on the Eventbrite event page, and they should be on those emails that I sent you, those confirmation emails, which I hope you received. If you didn't, check your spam folder. Okay, now let me just give you a few simple instructions before we begin, and then I promise we'll be all set. You can view the video in full screen mode by pressing the icon on the lower right hand corner of the video panel. It's nice to watch it in full screen. If you wish, you can pause the video or even rewind it. To get back to the live broadcast, i.e. what's happening now, you just click the live button on the top left hand side of the screen, or refresh your browser. You can turn the sound on and off with the icon in the lower left hand corner. I hope you've got the sound turned on, and you can type a comment or a question using the chat feature, as we've already discussed. However, the chat button disappears when you're in full screen mode. Just a little tip: if you're looking at this in full screen mode, you have to go back to normal mode to be able to see the chat button. And the archive photographs I referred to just now, if you've just joined we were talking about this a couple of minutes ago. There's a whole set of archive photos that I'll be referring to during the tour, and they're in the gallery below the video panel. Click on them now, have a look at them. Again, if you're in full screen mode, you'll have to quit out of full screen mode to see the gallery. Okay, now a virtual tour is no substitute for the real thing. but there are one or two advantages. Today you get the chance to see Omaha Beach in the best possible conditions, primarily completely devoid of any crowds. There's one or two people walking their dogs and stuff, and families coming out for an afternoon stroll, but there are no crowds. And I'd like to be able to say that you have absolutely fine weather, but we have had some rain. We're forecast for wind, maybe even hail. But I'm pretty sure that wherever you're watching right now, you're warm and dry, so that's a good thing. You can watch me get cold and wet, while you'll be warm and dry, sipping a cup of tea or something, or a cold drink. Okay, today we're at Omaha Beach. Behind me, you can see it. We're going to walk the beach. We're going to walk along the shelf. If we get a chance, we're going to definitely climb the bluffs, and we're going to go from LaRouque, which is where we are now, I'll explain shortly, to Strongpoint 62, overlooking the Colleville draw. I'll explain all these terms as we go along. We'll have a chat as we go along about the background to the D-Day landings, and look at the actions relating to the Allied forces on D-Day. But we're here especially to discover this place, Omaha Beach. We're going to visit the... Yeah. Okay. Sure. Thank you, Brendan. Okay, Brendan from We Love Normandy HQ just coming through there, letting me know to remind you that in the Zoom meeting afterwards, starting around about 5 o'clock Paris time, which is going to be around about 17 less 6, so it's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can ask any questions you like about Normandy, the region, the tourism here, you know, kind of where I live, you know, what my dog's name is, whatever you want to ask, okay? So we'll do that later on. Okay, we're going to visit the monuments dedicated to the US infantry and the US engineers who disembarked here on this beach at about 6:30 a.m. or from 6:30 a.m. on D-Day. And we'll learn about the challenges the troops faced and ultimately how they achieved their objectives. We'll find out about people like Colonel George Taylor, who commanded the 16th Infantry Regiment, Lieutenant Jimmy Monteith, who was killed on D-Day and was D-Day on Omaha Beach, the only soldier to be awarded the Medal of Honor. And we'll visit the machine gun location of the so-called Beast of Omaha, Hein Severloh. Okay, well, we're going to start the tour, so I'll flip over to the front camera. We'll get plenty of opportunity to see Omaha Beach today, but we'll start here and then we'll go and have a look at Strongpoint 65. So this is the E1 draw on Omaha Beach. Again, I'll explain the terms shortly, and we're going to go from the beach up to Strongpoint 65, which is right ahead of me. We're in Easy Red sector near the village of Saint-Laurent. It was defended by this very heavily armed strongpoint up ahead of us, Widerstandsnest 65. German the German term for the strongpoints was Widerstandsnest. It literally means resistance nest. We tend to refer to them as strongpoints. And Widerstandsnest is abbreviated to WN, so when you see the number of the strongpoints, in this case 65, it's often preceded by the initials WN. So WN just means strongpoint. And you can see the E1 draw, which is that exit road from the beach, going in between the bluffs, away from the beach. That's the E1 draw. So let me explain. In total there were 5 exits off Omaha Beach through these narrow valleys that cut into the escarpment of the bluffs. And the bluffs run the whole length of Omaha Beach. Let me see if I can give you a view of that. To our left here, you can see the bluffs rising to 70 to 170 feet, and to our right you can also see the bluffs, the escarpment of that hillside carrying on all the way down the beach. And in between those bluffs, there's this valley right up ahead of us, and that's known as a draw. The military planners referred to them as draws, D-R-A-W. Now you can see this beach exit and the one that we'll visit shortly at Strongpoint 65 in the gallery. And you can also see the strong points shown in red on those maps. And you might, if you're clever, be able to make out the draws themselves by looking at the contour lines on the maps. Now the job of invading this half, the eastern half of the beach where we are today, in the first waves was given to the 16th Infantry Regiment of the US 1st Infantry Division. The Big Red 1 Division, as the first was known, and it still is, because it's the oldest continuously serving division in the US Army, was commanded by General Clarence Hubner. It was an experienced unit, having seen action in North Africa and Sicily before D-Day. As well as being the site of fierce fighting on D-Day at this place here, Le Rouquet, it's also the location of the 2nd Provisional US Cemetery and the emergency airfield A-21. A-21 was installed on the 7th of June, the day after D-Day, and it was the first Allied aviation ground in Five Corps sector. Both of these sites, the Provisional Cemetery and the aviation ground, are on the top of that bluff there, on the plateau at the top of the bluff, just above us there. So we're coming to the main bunker of the strong point. These steps are post-war construction because they lead to the 2nd Infantry Division Monument. I hope everybody's getting the sound and the images here. Any problems, let us know. If you want to ask a question, please do so. So this is the 2nd Infantry Division Monument, the Indian Head Division as they're known, right next to the German bunker. The division, the 2nd Infantry, got its nickname, was named after the insignia of the division, which, as you can see, is an Indian warrior's head. But just why that image was chosen, I have never been able to find out. If anybody knows why the insignia of the 2nd was an Indian's head, I'd be very pleased to know. Now, as I said, the 2nd arrived on the 7th of June, and their arrival was filmed and photographed, and you can see a clip of that in the gallery, filmed right here. And we'll follow in the footsteps of the 2nd Infantry soldiers on that clip as they walked up the bluffs. Now then, we turn around and we'll see the first of many bunkers that we'll see, or certainly several bunkers that we'll see today on Omaha Beach. And this is the 50mm artillery bunker of Strongpoint 65. And as we go around, you'll be able to get a view of the gun itself. As you can see, very well preserved, and it's guarding the E1 draw. So as I pan around, you can see basically that gun covers this exit from the beach, this road off Omaha Beach that you can see there in the distance. That was the route of the vehicles that were coming off Omaha Beach, completely covered by this gun here, as you can imagine, almost impossible to exit the beach through this strong point. Now, entry to the gun is from the rear. Like so many of the German Army constructions in the region, it's open to the public, so we can take a look inside. Let's go all the way around before we enter. And if you have a look at some of those archive photographs in the gallery, and indeed the little video in the gallery of the 2nd Infantry climbing up the bluffs, you'll see this bunker in the distance on those archive photographs. I'm glad I've worn my Wellington boots today. As you can see, we've had a lot of rain and this one is quite flooded. And I'm going to pull out. Okay, we may have lost the signal there a little bit, but we're back. Good. Okay, so again, we're looking at the direction of fire of the 50mm, and the gun barrel, as you might be able to see here, the gun barrel points along the beach, in this case straight across the road, and it fires parallel with the beach in this direction that we're looking at now. And that gives the gunners what's known as flanking fire or enfilade fire, basically firing into the troops as they come from the beach towards the bluffs. It gives a very high, effective and very deadly hit rate. Many of the German artillery positions were oriented in this way rather than out to sea. That flanking fire gives the defenders a far higher hit rate. And if you look here, the gun itself is protected on the seaward side by this huge concrete wall, meaning that the gun is protected from naval shelling, which would have been coming from the channel, which you can see in the distance there, just the other side of the cars. Okay, well, we're going to follow in the footsteps of the 2nd Infantry and climb up the bluffs in the direction of the airfield and the provisional cemetery. Through this little gate here. Now, I hope this gives you an impression of the steepness of the bluffs. And we'll talk a little bit later as we go from this area to the next stage of the tour. I'll give you some of the background of D-Day. And this is only quite a small section of the bluffs. We'll be climbing right to the top when we get to Strongpoint 62. Hope you can't hear my heavy breathing. It certainly keeps me fit doing these tours. If anybody watching today has seen my webinar of the 1st Infantry Division on Omaha Beach, you might be familiar with this spot because this is part of my webinar presentation. Let me pan around so you get a good view of the beach. And what you can see here already is a shell crater hole, or shell crater. You can see that indentation in the ground there. There's a crater, maybe 15-20 feet across. Still here after 77 years. And now we reach the spot where that archive footage was filmed. If you haven't done so already, have a look at the little black and white archive clip on the gallery of the 2nd Infantry Division soldiers marching up this hill from the direction of the bunker, which, as you can see, 77 years ago looked pretty much the same as it does today. And in the distance, About a mile from here, along the beach, round about in the centre of the screen now, is our next destination. The E3 draw, so the E3 exit at Colleville and Strongpoint 62. Okay, well, we'll go down and we'll make our way to Strongpoint 62. Now on these tours, normally I would walk along the swampy area known as the shelf between the bluffs and the beach all the way to Strongpoint 62. It's about a mile or so, and I have no problem walking that distance for you. But what I do fear is that although we've got some nice blue sky here, at the moment, so far today, the bad weather has been coming in waves sort of every 20 minutes, half an hour, and I don't want to get stuck between here and Strongpoint 62 in a heavy downpour, because some of the high-tech equipment that I'm using today is not very waterproof, and you probably wouldn't be able to hear much if the rain was pounding down, and you probably wouldn't be able to see much if my camera lens was full of water. So what we'll do is from here we'll drive to Strongpoint 62. Luckily I have my driver today, Nikki, and on the way we can have a look at the beach itself, and we'll drive through two of the villages that were liberated by the 1st Infantry on D-Day, Saint-Laurent and Colleville. And then we'll drive down to the beach at Strongpoint 62, walk the bluffs, scale the bluffs, and we'll end the tour at the 1st Infantry Division Monument. So please do feel free to send in a question or a discussion topic for later on in the Zoom call. Everybody's invited to the Zoom meeting today. After today, the Zoom discussions will be available to subscribers. But don't worry, because you get a free 30-day trial for subscriptions, so you can always sign up for that. And anyway, it's only €3. What's that? $4, something like that. £2.50. So I'd like to thank you, Chris Bosworth, for your comment. Great to see you online, and I'm glad you're enjoying the show. Whereabouts are you viewing from, Chris? Maybe he'll let us know. Okay, we have 135 people with us today, which is fantastic. So far, the weather gods are being fairly kind to us. And at this stage, we are going to get in the car and we're going to drive to Colleville and Strongpoint 62. So bear with me a second. Okay, Susan, great to see you online. Thank you very much for subscribing, and thanks for your question about how Strongpoint 65 was taken. Bear with me a second, I'm just getting into our vehicle and then we'll be setting off. Susan, I'm going to come back to your question. Okay. So we are going to drive down to Strongpoint 62. Okay. So Chris, thank you for your question earlier. I believe you're tuning in from West Yorkshire. Lovely part of the world. My nephews were born in Barnsley. Okay, so what we're speeding by some of the new constructions, or the post-war constructions made since, well, really in the decades that followed the end of the war. As you can see, quite a lot of buildings have been, houses and vacation homes have been constructed here in the years that followed. But there are still areas of the beach that are pretty underdeveloped, and the beach itself, as you can see, is huge. Now, the tide is on its way out, about 2/3 of the way out today. When the US troops arrived, the tide was rising. Yeah, so we thank you, Brendan's just told me that some people have said that we've skipped the memorial to Charles Shea. We just drove past it, absolutely well spotted. We will visit the Charles Shea Monument and the monument to the Amerindian Monument, the monument to the Native American soldiers. We will do that as part of my tour that includes this part of the beach, Les Moulins, and the D3 draw and the D1 draw at Villefranche-sur-Mer. So we'll do that as part of the western end of Omaha Beach tour in a couple of weeks' time. So keep a lookout on the website to find out when that tour will be, and it is on one of my itineraries, and I tie that in with a visit to this place, which is the Signal Monument and the Brave Ones Monument that we're just going past now. Okay. Norman Skinner, thank you for your comment. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. So Norman Skinner parachuted in with the 101st. Thank you for letting us know about that. So we're just passing the Omaha Museum, Belgian gates there, and an artillery piece and a Sherman tank. And we're going through the village of Saint Laurent. Now, I promised to give you some of the background to D-Day. Well, where are we and where were the Normandy beaches? Well, we're here in the northwest of France, about 100 miles from England, over there across the English Channel. There were several options for the location of Operation Overlord, including launching an invasion force across the North Sea, from Scotland to Norway, or even a Mediterranean invasion on the south coast of France. But the Allied planners decided to launch a cross-channel operation and chose Normandy due to its proximity to the only country that was still resisting Nazi expansion. That means Great Britain. Have a look at the map on the gallery called Why Normandy. Now, if you have a look at that map, the obvious choice was to sail the invasion fleet across the Strait of Dover to the Pas-de-Calais, which is a distance of only 20 miles at its narrowest point. But that was the obvious choice, and the German defences in that region, therefore, had been made too strong, and the majority of Hitler's armoured panzer divisions were in that northern part of France. There's a place called Dieppe. I know we have some viewers from Canada today, and the heavily defended port of Dieppe was attacked by a mainly Canadian force in 1942 with terrible consequences. So the Allied planners knew that really they couldn't attack a port city directly. They had to launch an invasion on the beaches. The north coast of Brittany, which you can also see on the map, has got suitable landing beaches, but it's too far away from the airfields in southern England, and therefore that was beyond the range of the Allied fighter planes. So that basically left the bay of the River Seine in lower Normandy, where we are here, and a 50-mile stretch of beaches, cliffs and estuaries between the seaport of Caen to the east of us here and the Cherbourg Peninsula, where the 101st Airborne were dropped in, by the way. But the Allies needed to keep this location a secret, from the enemy. And in fact, what they really wanted to do was convince the Germans that the invasion would be staged somewhere else. So an elaborate deception plan was put in place, codenamed Operation Fortitude. I'm sure some of you have heard of this, which included many cunning counterintelligence ploys to deceive the Germans. Have a look at the photographs in the gallery. There was a phantom army, the US 1st Army Group, and they were complete with inflatable vehicles. I think you can see some of them on the gallery there. Inflatable vehicles, fake radio transmissions, even a fake commander in the guise of General George Patton, who later commanded the real 3rd US Army in Normandy, of course. So have a look at those photographs in the gallery. The actual officer who was in charge of the deception plan was Major General Leslie McNair. His grave is in the cemetery, which we're coming up to now. You can see some interesting French driving up ahead. Yeah, if you tune into my webinar tour on Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. French time, we will see the grave of Leslie McNair and Teddy Roosevelt Jr. and Jimmy Monteith and others on that webinar tour. So we've just driven past the American Cemetery. Oh, that's the other thing that we'll see on Wednesday, the American Cemetery. So that's 8 p.m. on Wednesday evening. Okay, I'm getting a question from Brendan. Thank you very much indeed, Brendan. Somebody has written in to say, can I talk a little bit about the Normandy bocage? Well, we're driving past it. Those of you who are keen-eyed will have seen some of the hedgerows already. There's one here on the left. You can see there, that is a Normandy hedgerow. It's not a particularly big one, but nonetheless, and here on the right as well, you can see the bank of dirt or earth, and then on top of that you have the quite densely planted trees. That's the hedgerow countryside. That's the Normandy bocage. This is the church of Colleville-sur-Mer. You can see the damage that was done to that during the war, and then it may well be that we're losing the signal here, but it should be okay. If anybody writes in with a comment to say that they're losing the signal, don't worry, it'll be coming back in just a couple of minutes. Yeah, once we get down to the beach, the signal will be fine. It's just in this draw here, this valley, we kind of lose the 4G signal. If anybody's seeing these pictures, this is a great example of a Normandy bocage here, these high banks of dirt or earth. But I fear that not much of this is coming through at the moment. Brendan, are we getting these images? Okay, so yeah, look at this hedgerow here. This is a high bank of earth, maybe 6-10 feet tall, and then the hedge is on top of the bank. It's a really great shot of it. So if anybody lost the signal a little bit back there, please forgive me. We're back on the beach now, where normally we do not have a problem with the 4G signal. And I think actually what I'll do is I'll ask driver Nikki if she can deliver me here, and we'll get back to doing the little hike. And it looks for the moment as though the weather is okay. Okay. Oops. So we're back on the beach, Strongpoint 62. Bear with me 1 second just while I reconnect a couple of things. Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry for the radio silence. I'm just trying to hook up with my wingman, and I'll be back to you in just a couple of moments. Okay, we are back in contact with We Love Normandy HQ. Sorry for the drop in the signal there when we were driving down the E3 Draw. But I think now that we're back on the beach, we should be okay with the signal. Okay, so we're here at Strongpoint now, Strongpoint 62, looking out onto the beach where so many men of the 16th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division came ashore and suffered terrible defensive fire from the German artillery and machine gun positions up on the bluffs here at Strongpoint 62. Somebody has a question regarding the Strongpoint numbers. There are 14 strongpoints on Omaha Beach, from Strongpoint 60 at the F1 draw at Cabourg, just over there, the other side of those buildings, to Strongpoint 73 in Vierville, which is about 4 miles from here, 4 miles west of here in the distance on this shot here. So 14 strongpoints. So in between where we've gone from just before at Strongpoint 65 to here, we skipped 3. We skipped 2 strongpoints, if you like. The Strongpoint 62 is famous or infamous for its firepower and for the action that occurred here, and we'll talk about that in a second. If you lost the signal when we were driving down that draw and you've tuned back in, welcome back. We haven't really missed anything during the last 5 minutes, So let me put you on the front camera for a minute. I know the last thing you want to do probably is watch me with my face mask on, but I'd just like to say thank you very much for tuning in to this tour. We're halfway through. We're about to go on a climb of the bluffs at Strongpoint 62. Okay, I have a question from someone who's saying, was this area heavily mined? Absolutely. We are walking through a minefield right now. This area of the beach was known to the occupying forces as the High Beach. Let me flick back around to the front camera so I can show you what that means. Down there on the by the sea, where the tide comes in, is what the Germans referred to as the Low Beach. And then past these dunes here that you can see to the left and right, and between us now and the bluffs is this area of swampy ground the Germans referred to as the High Beach. The Allied planners referred to it as the Shelf. And if you have a look at that cross-section of Omaha Beach in the gallery, you'll see the shelf marked there on the beach. Between the and this is the area that was heavily mined, full of anti-personnel mines. And the Low Beach, the real beach if you like, was pretty much as it is today. 400 yards of open beach, referred to after D-Day as the killing zone, because so many troops lost their lives getting out of those Higgins boats and other landing craft on the sea strand that you see in the distance there, and making their way to the top of the beach here where they would try and take some cover. Getting across this shelf was the next challenge, and then getting up the bluffs, an even bigger challenge. But I think I'll give you the background to that shortly. Just to round off what we were talking about, the background to D-Day before, the area here in Normandy targeted by the Allied planners was occupied by 84 Corps of the German 7th Army, and it was defended by 5 infantry divisions, 5 German infantry divisions, and 3 armoured panzer divisions. In all, a force of around 100,000 soldiers. But due to the confusing chain of command, here, let me flick around here. I'm just taking a bit of shelter behind this vehicle because you probably can't hear it because I've got a good microphone on, but it's blowing maybe sort of 40-mile-an-hour wind here. I'm lucky, I don't know how I've managed to keep my hat. Few of the German, you have a look on the gallery, you'll see some pictures of the German High Command who were in command of units in Normandy on D-Day. Few of them were actually present on D-Day. Adolf Hitler was celebrating the wedding of Eva Braun's sister in Berchtesgaden. Rommel too had gone back to Bavaria to visit his wife Lucia on her birthday, and he presented her with a pair of shoes. Everyone remembers Rommel's wife's shoes, don't know why. General Dolman, Friedrich Dolman, whose photograph you'll see there, he was the commander of the 7th Army, and he was down in Brittany, about 100 miles away from here, taking part or organising war games. And he'd taken most of the divisional and regimental commanders down there with him. The only General Fallet of the 91st Luftlandser Division, he was on his way back from the war games, and he got shot dead by a US paratrooper returning to his HQ at the Chateau de Bernaville. He was the first German senior officer killed on D-Day, and the only German commander the only German panzer commander whose tanks were anywhere near the Normandy beachhead, Edgar Fürstinger, General Edgar Fürstinger, he was in Paris with his mistress. In fact, there was only really general marks, and again I think there's a photograph of marks in the gallery. There was only really General Marks present here at his HQ in Saint-Lô. He was the commander of 84 Corps, and the 6th of June, he was a real archetype German general. He had a battle-damaged, a battle-scarred face and only one leg, and his birthday was the 6th of June, and sadly for poor old General Marks, he wasn't alive to see another birthday because he was killed about a week later. Anyway, as Adolf Hitler was really the only person who could order the movements of the armoured panzer divisions, and he was asleep in bed until quite late on the morning of D-Day, nobody dared wake him. The German armoured response on D-Day was very lackluster, very slow. In fact, no German tanks engaged American troops on D-Day, and they did not succeed in doing what Field Marshal Rommel, in his words, said was throw the enemy back into the sea. And in fact, had they been able to get their tanks here to the beachhead on D-Day, it might have been a very different story for the 1st Infantry Division. In fact, the whole of 5 Corps, 7 Corps, and the 2 British Corps, and of course the Canadians. So yeah, that was the Germans on D-Day. Now we arrive at the first of the bunkers at Strongpoint 62. You can probably see that this strongpoint is really built into the hillside, built into the bluffs. It is a way more formidable target than Strongpoint 65, I would suggest. It has 2 75mm artillery positions, machine gun nests, minefields down there in the shelf, mortar positions, and it really was a tough challenge for the boys of the 16th Infantry Regiment to take this position. Now I'm going to climb down. Can you see this? I'm just trying to climb down this rather slippery after the rain hillside. You'll bear with me a second, but from here we'll get a good view of the bunker itself, and hopefully we'll be able to go inside if it's not too flooded. So here we are. This is a 75mm bunker. Again, let me flick around here. Again, let me show you the embrasure or the opening of the bunker. There's the opening of the bunker. Okay, you see the opening of the bunker there. Brendan, I'm having difficulty hearing you. And the seaward side of the bunker is right there. The gun is not pointing out to sea, but it's pointing along the beach, and I'll flick over to the front camera to show you the direction of the field of fire. So there you go. The gun itself is firing along the beach, parallel with the shoreline, to get that flanking fire on the American troops that are coming in off the landing craft. It's built right into the hillside. And again, there's a photograph in the gallery of this place 76 years ago. You can have a look at that. And you can also see that huge buffer of solid concrete. Well, it's actually made out of concrete block, this bunker. Some of them are poured concrete. This one's flank is made out of concrete block and steel. That is protecting the gun in there from the sea, from Allied ships on the channel shelling this position. Okay. Although they suspected an Allied landing was possible in Normandy, we're not expecting us to land where we did, when we did. And the fact that those senior generals or senior officers were absent was just good luck for the Allies. Okay, what we'll do now is we'll try to make our way through the bunker. If we lose the signal inside, then don't worry, the signal will be restored once we come out the back. And I think, as I've said a couple of times already, if you wish, you can join us on Wednesday evening, if you're available, Wednesday evening in France, 8 p.m. Paris time, for a webinar where we revisit all of these sites in the webinar with some great video footage, unique video footage that we've done, and gives you a better chance to see inside the bunker if we lose the signal. Wednesday we'll also be visiting the US cemetery and the F1 draw and a couple of other things. So it covers a bit more ground than we'll cover today. So we're going to go through the bunker itself and out the other side. As you can see, the bunker at this time of year is flooded. You might be able to hear the echoey sound as I go through. Luckily, I'm wearing my wellies. Like a typical Brit, I'm wearing my Wellington boots as I stomp through this water. There is the view out of the embrasure, the gun would have had. The gun is not here as it is at Strongpoint 62. The gun has been removed, but you can see some of the shell damage, some of the shelling damage to the bunker itself here. Hope you're getting this. Brendan, you can tell me whether these images are coming through. Okay, and you can see here we have chambers to the left and right for the shells, the ammunition for the guns, the 75mm guns. Coming out. So it looks like I might be losing the signal a wee bit there, so I'm going to try and get somewhere where we get a better signal. Yeah, the vertical lines inside the casemate, I believe, I have been told that they are there to reduce the acoustic blast when the gun is fired. If the walls were smooth, then that increases the chances of the gunners themselves having their eardrums blown out. And those random wavy lines in the walls of the bunker serve to reduce the sonic boom when the gun goes off. Imagine it's a 75mm artillery piece in a room the size of your dining room. Now, we get a good view of the bunker from above here. Starting to get some fantastic views of Omaha Beach itself. A tour coming up very, very soon. We'll start down there and we'll talk more about the combat medics. You can see those two blocks of concrete in the sand. The one on the left, the larger one, is now the monument to the US combat medics. Ray Lambert, Sergeant Ray Lambert. Yeah, we'll do a tour specifically about the combat medics on a future date, and then we'll go down to the F1 draw and do some stuff right at the very, very end of the beach, which is down there. Let me swing around here. I'm steaming up a bit. There's just too much to see on Omaha Beach. You know, I bring 300, 400 people a year to the beaches of Normandy and the other D-Day and World War II sites. And a day is not enough to see Omaha Beach. I mean, you know, and an hour, forget it. You know, you just can't see all this stuff in an hour's virtual tour. But so we're going to do three or four separate Omaha tours over the coming weeks. This is the first one of this year's, and we'll hopefully be able to do them a bit later as we go into the spring and the summer. The reason we have to do them early now is that France has a curfew at 6 o'clock, so I'm going to make my way now past the last two monuments that we're going to see today so that we can get back before curfew. It's a bit bizarre that the last time there was a curfew here in Normandy was 6th of June or the 5th of June 1944. Now the curfew is back as a way of curbing the COVID pandemic. Okay, so we're here at the second of the two 75mm gun emplacements. They're twins, if you like. And on top of this one is the 5th Engineers Special Brigade Monument, dedicated to all of the engineers of the 5th who came ashore here at this end of Omaha Beach. Those are the guys, going back to the question about the minefields. The engineers are the guys that had to blow the beach obstacles on the beach there. You can see those on the gallery. Get rid of the, make a channel through the beach obstacles for the landing craft to get through. And then they had to remove the mines from the minefields. And actually on Utah Beach, the majority of the casualties that 7 Corps suffered, and specifically the 4th Infantry Division and the 1st Engineers, the majority of their casualties were to do with anti-personnel mines. And these things are called S-mines, or bouncing betties, so called because they jump up out of the ground to a height of about 2 feet before they explode, obviously causing massive, terrible wounds and in the abdominal area. Okay, so we're now going to go and see if we can find the Beast of Omaha. Some people have heard of this. This is Hein Severloh, young man in the 352nd Artillery Regiment, who was here as part of an artillery observer section, looking for targets on the English Channel and wiring their coordinates back to big guns that his unit was in charge of a couple of miles behind the beach. Now, he was not supposed to be shooting a machine gun or manning an artillery, manning an artillery or machine gun position on D-Day, but he was given a gun and told to fire. And let me swing around here. The troops landing down there on Fox Green sector were coming ashore here, and you can see from here the tactical advantage of a gunner on this rise shooting down an MG42 machine gun on the troops arriving. Had a very, very solid, deadly firing position. And this is near where it was. This is the bunker, this is the observation bunker of Hein Severloh's section. You can see it's been quite badly damaged by the shells, by the naval shelling. Inside, you can see it's a very small place, but just enough room for a couple of men to stand with their scissor telescopes looking out for targets on the sea and communicating their coordinates to the big guns a couple of miles back. And Severloh was not actually inside the bunker itself. He was connected to the bunker via this trench, which you can still see the remains of, one of the zigzag trenches. We'll come to those in a minute. His position was round about here, 20 feet or so away from the bunker. The reason we know this is that he survived the war and wrote his memoirs, WN62, which I thoroughly recommend if you want to get a German perspective on the Allied invasion. And this is where he set up his MG42 machine gun. And he discharged thousands and thousands of rounds of machine gun and rifle ammunition on the morning of D-Day over a period of about 5 hours, and was responsible for the deaths and wounding of many hundreds of American troops. The Beast of Omaha. And you can see his photograph in the gallery. If you haven't already done so, have a look at that. He's a 21-year-old Gefreiter or private, and I'll let you judge yourself whether you think he was evil, whether he was really a beast, or whether he was just a young conscripted German soldier doing what he'd been trained to do. We are so lucky with the weather. Look at that beautiful sky now. You would not have believed the weather forecast today was even for snow. This morning I was checking the weather forecast, and yeah, it was hail, it was snow, it was high winds. We're getting the high winds, but luckily so far the rain gods have been quite kind to us. Okay, we're going to leave Hein Severloh's machine gun area and his observation bunker, and we're going to climb further. You can see this area of the strong point has lots of little bunkers and trenches. If you have a look on the gallery as well, you'll see one of the US engineers inside one of these trenches. Let me get down here and show you. These would have been a lot deeper, as you can see on the black and white photograph. Yeah, these were the trenches that connected the various bunkers together and allowed the German troops to move between these positions, these fixed positions, without being exposed to enemy fire. Okay. I'm going to go and... Brendan, I hope everything's all right your end, back at HQ. There's something I want to show everybody here before we go up to the 1st Division Monument. Now here too we've got some trenches, or a trench. Okay. This is just the vestiges of a deep trench, like the one you see in the photograph. And I'm hoping, if I get the right angle on this, you can see how it's basically a zigzag. The trench zigzags its way, or meanders its way, up towards the monument. And this is, again, is another cunning defensive design. Certainly not the first time it was used in World War II, I'm sure it was used as well in the First World War. But the trenches themselves are in these zigzag sections, so that if a grenade or a mortar lands in one of these sections of the zigzag, the effects of the explosion will only be felt within this. Let me just pace it out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 yards. So it just reduces the effectiveness of any explosive fire coming inside the trench, and indeed small arms fire. If an enemy soldier were to get inside the trench and fire his weapon, then the range of his fire is limited just to those 6 yards of the trench. Very ingenious. But if you look at this position on the Google Maps, in fact a lot of the places on the Normandy coast where the trench, or the vestiges of the trenches, are still there, you can see it very good from a bird's eye perspective. You can see the zigzag trenches. Okay. So we're nearly at the top of the bluffs, approaching the 1st Infantry Monument. First Infantry, commanded by General Clarence Hubner, an experienced unit. Unlike the partner division, who was the 29th Infantry, who were down a couple of miles to the west there, the 29th, part of the National Guard, for them D-Day was their first taste of active duty. But that's another tour. As I said, we'll do 2 or 3 Omaha focused tours over the weeks to come. And here we are, the 1st Infantry Monument, the big red one. As you can see the insignia there. I wrote the divisional insignia. And the monument commemorates the 1700 or so, or some of the 1700 or so 1st Infantry Division soldiers and officers who lost their lives during the Second World War. You can see the names here of those who were lost in the Normandy campaign. Well, you see the officers, the captains, the first lieutenants, the sergeants, and then the corporals and the privates. You might also notice that if I get a bit of a closer view, some of the names are inscribed in gold. This one here, that mentions at the bottom there how the Medal of Honor recipients are inscribed in gold. And you can see, I'm not sure you can make it out there, but just there with 7 or 8 other first lieutenants, you have Jimmy Monteith, First Lieutenant Jimmy Monteith. I mentioned him earlier. He lost his life at the F1 draw, Strongpoint 60, and was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions on D-Day. We'll cover him, as I say, in a future tour. Okay. Brendan, thank you for that. So I've been reminded that the time the clock is ticking away. I could spend, even in spite of the cold and my cold fingers, I could spend another hour up here telling you about Omaha Beach, but we do have to be back before curfew. Now, we are going to continue the discussion in a Zoom call. You should have the details of that in the emails that you were sent. As I say, if you didn't get the emails, check your spam folders. The details are also on the Eventbrite event page. So I hope you can join me. It'd be nice to have a chat. We can open up a discussion. I'll try to answer a few of your questions, some of the ones that we haven't been able to answer as we've been walking along. But I do have to make my way. Now, I've got a couple of things to mention before closing. Bear with me one second. I'll just give you this beautiful image of the clear blue sky in the 1st Infantry Division Monument. Just checking a couple of things. Okay, thank you, Brendan. So, Omaha Beach, before we leave it and go to the Zoom call, as well as being the biggest of the 5 invasion beaches, was also the bloodiest. We mentioned the airborne troops briefly, the 101st, for example. They were dropped behind enemy lines by parachute or glider. They would suffer comparable casualty rates, but apart from the airborne troops, really the troops that landed here on Omaha Beach suffered the highest casualty rates. In fact, some of those first wave troops suffered over 80% casualties at a section level. So the Allies might have been overly cautious about the enemy firepower here, and as a result, we didn't talk about it much, we could maybe talk about it in the Zoom. The initial air and navy bombardments, the initial ones that is, was not successful in neutralising the German bunkers that we've seen today. Those bunkers, being well concealed in the cliffs and the bluffs, contained a deadly collection of weaponry. And the Germans even though the Germans were outnumbered, maybe by up to 30 to 1, because they were dug into those positions, those fixed positions we've seen today, they had a huge tactical advantage. And by the end of the day, 1,400 American soldiers had been killed, thousands more have been injured. But acts of courage and sacrifice and strong leadership from people like George Taylor, Jimmy Monteith, resulted ultimately in a victory. Okay, well, this is where I'm supposed to meet my ride. At the moment I can't see my vehicle. Maybe she's parked in the main parking lot or car park. This is actually the car park of the American Cemetery. Well, you know, on Wednesday I'll be giving the webinar, Omaha Beach, basically what we covered today, but in more detail. So I hope you can tune in for that on Wednesday. I'll be doing Utah Beach on the 24th, and on Saturday the 27th of March I'll be coming to you live again from the beaches. Don't know exactly where, but stay tuned to find out. I do hope you can join me on Wednesday. And for those of you who are going to join us on the Zoom call in about 5 minutes, I'll see you shortly. And for everybody else who can't make the Zoom, that's great, that's fine. I'd be very appreciative if you check out the website. If you become a subscriber, there are lots of great benefits, and you help me carry on doing tours like this. But for now, I'll say goodbye and see you next time in beautiful Normandy. And for the other people, I'll see you in about 5 minutes on Zoom. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next time in Normandy.